I did want to say a little bit more about sort of overall water supply security and what's coming out of the plan and how it's, I think, framing the investment that we are asking water users who would benefit from the conveyance system to make, and really informing, I think, an overall state need for water supply reliability, because we are certainly aware that not everyone in the state benefits from improved water supply reliability associated with BDCP, and the needs extend beyond that, and we need to look towards other investments that the state needs to make. So a couple of things that are worth pointing out. One is that the conservation plan is contemplating several sets of flow criteria. I mentioned earlier that there were there were outflow criteria associated with different seasons, spring outflow for particular species that are not part of the regulatory regime right now, but the plan is contemplating as permitting criteria for the conveyance facilities. We have been doing some, and that essentially produces a yield that's very similar to yield under today's current conditions, and that's about 4.7 million acre feet. We also make we identify processes for testing the habitat restoration and testing the effectiveness of some of these flow criteria in a decision tree that suggests that if we got the biological response that we're seeking and we are seeing the improvement in species, that there's the potential that a yield from the system could rise to about 5.6 million acre feet. But for purposes of understanding how a conveyance fix secures the water system, if you will, for those export supplies, we have been looking at this high outflow scenario and trying to understand a 4.7 million acre foot yield, what that provides to the economy, what that provides to the beneficiaries of the facilities. So first, I would say that with BDCP stabilizing existing water supplies with a yield of about 4.7 million acre feet, our most recent economic analysis demonstrates about a $5 billion economic benefit. That is mostly geared toward, mostly result of reducing the risk of future shortages and how important that is to the California economy, how important that is to jobs and the broader economy that's served by the state and federal water projects. We also know that there's downward pressure on water supplies coming out of the system because of climate change, and that alternative supplies, we're going to need to continue investment in alternative supplies to meet California's water needs, so that it's not an either or with this investment in a conveyance fix in the Delta, but that conveyance fix in the Delta, I think, frames up some of the other needs that different regions of the state may have, depending on their water supply portfolio, depending on what's available to them locally. And all of those alternative supplies are examined in the California Water Plan update. We expect that update to come out as a public draft in September. It's due to be finalized and provided to the legislature in January of 2014. But that is going to help us, I think, understand what the BDCP proposal provides from a water supply infrastructure perspective, and frames up some of the other decisions that the state will need to make relative to investments in other kinds of supplies to create a broader California water plan that meets some of the climate change needs that we know exist, that address some of the aging infrastructure needs that we know that all Californians share. One of the things that I also want to point out, I read in an editorial in the Sacramento Bee recently suggesting that the conservation plan didn't provide a look at water supply availability in different hydrologic years. And the plan does, we do have criteria for how the system would be operated in critically dry year conditions, wet conditions, and we have yields associated with that that I think are also a good framework for understanding better what the storage needs are in the state, both below ground and above ground potentially, how we start addressing back-to-back critically dry years. And I think this is an important piece of information. I mean, part of the huge, enormous task of the conservation plan has been to look focus laser-like on what do we think that we can sustainably export from the system while meeting this goal for helping these species recover in the Delta. And the outcome of that, what the outcome of this particular process has on the potential for storage in the state and potential for other statewide investments in recycled water, improved water use efficiency in other areas. So all of this, I think, is taking shape. I think the conservation plan will provide an important framework for those other discussions that we know the Council is having, that the California Water Commission is having, and other agencies that are charged with that responsibility, in addition to the Department of Water Resources. So with that, as I mentioned, if you would like some more details from Gordon, he's here to talk about the most recent adjustments in the project, and Carl can certainly describe in more detail how the habitat restoration fits with the ecosystem restoration program, how some of the flow criteria proposed in BDCP fits for your policies to restore more natural flows to the Delta. So thank you very much.
Thank you.